Welcome to Acorn to Oak with Pennie Quaile-Pearce and co-host Matthew Donachie. Within each acorn, there is the DNA that strives to be a mighty oak tree. All it needs to reach its potential for greatness is to be activated. You are the acorn. On this show, we will share with you the tools and guidance you need to grow into the person you are meant to be. And now your host, Pennie Quaile-Pearce and co-host Matthew Donachie.
Hi, good evening. Hi, it's Pennie, and we're minus again Matthew. Hopefully he'll catch up with us and we'll join the show as fast as he can. I know he was having problems with tech last week, so I wonder whether that's still bugging him. Actually, I was talking with Chris from OMTimes Radio a few minutes ago, basically saying, do you have gremlins in America as much as we have gremlins in the UK? And just we were just joshing each other about some tech going on, and it's like, something does take over. It's like a super tech world nowadays, and if you're not tech savvy, sometimes things will just take over, and something that you thought was going to take you 5 minutes takes you 5 hours, and something that you thought was going to take you 5 hours actually takes you 5 minutes. And so maybe I'm just showing my age a little bit, but I was born in the 1960s, so computers were not per se with how I was brought up. We didn't have things like that. We had mobile phones the size of bricks. So I'm a little bit before technology took over the world, and it's been an interesting journey. And I would also say to you that, the subject that we're discussing this evening, which is, the power of the subconscious mind, unless you know how to work with the subconscious, it can be like that naughty piece of tech which seems to have a gremlin in it, because, unless you actually have a way of addressing the subconscious directly and starting to get some sense out of it, it is quite senseless. And, we can resist.
Thank you very much.
What the subconscious is. Hi, Matthew, it's nice to hear your voice. We can resist what the subconscious mind is telling us.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hey. And, we can resist what the subconscious is trying to tell us, or we can work out a systematic way of being in contact with the subconscious, and which allows us then to access a much bigger percentage or capacity of our mind. You may have heard me talk about this a little bit before, but it's worth repeating, because the more you hear it, the more you get it. The conscious mind, which is our waking consciousness, is just 10% of our mind's capacity. Just 10%. And that 10% is basically our waking consciousness. And our waking consciousness is to work with the five senses, picks up data, interprets it. It basically looks to see whether we need to be in fight or flight. Hopefully nowadays, we don't need to be in fight or flight, but we're ancient beings in some ways. And so we still have that fight or flight response. And, the conscious mind is about keeping us safe. And part of that conscious mind is our ego. And the ego is definitely here to keep us safe. It will evaluate data. It will look at things. I don't know what the weather is like there in the States this evening, but it's been pouring. I mean, England is known for its rain, but it was actually pouring with rain most of the day over the country, and it was like cats and dogs. We have that expression in the UK. It's raining cats and dogs. You know that it's chucking lots of water out of the sky at us when we talk about that. So, you know, when we're out and about and we're just using our conscious minds, you know, we're limited. You know, it's about fight or flight. It's about survival. And it's about, you know, ego will get hold of something and we come up with statements like, I want, I want, I want. And when we realize that, you know, the subconscious mind is 40% of our mind's capacity, we suddenly realize that it is a storehouse of gold and skills and all sorts of things that actually we suppress because we don't have room anymore in our conscious mind. If we actually filled it up with some of the stuff that we suppressed into our subconscious, our mind would basically, you know, I'm sorry for this inelegant analogy, but we'd be in mental constipation. We wouldn't have room to think of anything, and we need more space in our conscious mind so we can have clarity and we can start looking at the creative side of things. So I just wanted to go through that, and also to mention again the superconscious mind. And the superconscious mind is 50%. It is half of our mind's capacity. And that 50% is our superconscious, our higher self, our creativity, all of the really good, juicy things in life. So it's our ability to have joy, our ability to have love in our lives and also love ourselves. But it's, another way of saying is it's your superconscious, it's your higher self, and dare I say it, it's where our soul lives within our mind. And, you know, that is really important to get. So what we'll be discussing once we've tuned in with Matthew and said hello is what we will go on and discuss is actually what is in that subconscious and how we can get a map to actually getting down there and doing some really important work. So I just want to say, give Matthew a chance to say hello and good evening. How are you doing, Matthew?
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well. Yeah, we've had a month and a half's rain in just 2 days here in England. So I've considered building an ark just in case the rain doesn't stop.
Yeah, that's a good idea,
yeah,
maybe.
Real interesting.
It's I live in a part of the country where I actually live between the ocean and the forest, the New Forest, which is an amazing forest. It's a beautiful area of the country to live in. And, the only trouble is when it rains that hard, it gets very, very muddy very, very quickly. And I was out this morning walking the dog and it was Mud City R Us. So, yeah, it's an interesting time. However, I also had a wonderful experience of walking outside. I was just coming out of a leisure centre and walking around to my car, and there was this 4-year-old little girl who basically I went into umbrella envy because she had this bumblebee umbrella. And she was looking rather miserable and not very happy at all. She was dragging her heels. She was wearing sandals, so she was getting her feet very wet. So I just looked at her and laughed, and I said, right. And she got her grandmother with her who was a little bit further ahead than her. And I just started doing I'm Singing in the Rain. I got her to jump with me into all the puddles. And it was really quite funny. Her grandmother was turning around going, this woman is a complete and utter lunatic. But in the end, we had so much fun just kicking the water about. We were going to be soaked anyway, so you may as well enjoy it. So sometimes it can feel that way when we're not dealing with our subconscious mind, and our conscious mind is full of water and it's just sloshing around, and it's basically not helping us. You know, we have repeated thought patterns. We go into hurry worry. We're constantly worrying about resources and how we're going to meet deadlines, and constantly thinking, you know, it's all about us. We take things so personally. And, you know, if somebody drives towards us and, you know, that they're not necessarily being very helpful, maybe they're flashing their lights or they're just wanting you to get out of the way, and you just look at it and just go, what's this person on? And what we don't remember is that we have probably done some behaviour like that in the past when we've been hurrying somewhere. And, you know, but the thought forms that actually come up and we go loop and loop and loop, and it's just not really helpful to our daily lives. But we've gone into this fight or flight. We've gone into I need to protect all my borders, you know, and, you know, we can be quite aggressive, although we don't mean to be, in policing those boundaries, because we feel like somebody is trying to either take something from us or they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes, or we just don't feel safe around them and we go into fight or flight. So we get a kick of adrenaline, which actually, you know, when it was when we were cavemen, was really important if we were going to have to fight a saber-toothed tiger. But it's not helpful when you're walking down the road going to the nearest shop. You know, it's so when we overreact that way and we get the dump of adrenaline, what the dump of adrenaline does is takes us into a place that we, although we're actually in the Western world, unfortunately, we are used to being in fight or flight, because that is actually what stresses us out. You know, what we don't realise is our adrenal glands are working overtime, which puts us into a state of unbalance. In the medical term we would use is we want to be in homeostasis, we want to be in balance. But what actually happens is when we get that buzz of adrenaline, we are completely, it's like having the carpet pulled from underneath us. We are out of balance, and once we're out of balance, it takes some time to work back into balance. And you know, as Chris and I were talking about before Matthew got here, was, you know, the gremlins in a computer can definitely put you out of balance. And it's not, you know, you're just shaking your head at a computer because you think it's actually holding you hostage, and it's not. It's just something is, a glitch is happening, a gremlin is around. And sometimes, as I said, we can have those gremlins in our conscious mind, which like run interference, and we cannot think clearly once fight or flight response is actually clicked into place. You know, because all of our, you know, the glucose dump we get when we get a fight or flight response, obviously it was coming in because you needed it to run or fight in caveman days, but we don't need that now. So we find that our blood sugar is moving up and down at an enormous rate. And when we then hit the bottom of fight or flight, we actually then need to take on board something else. And it may be we decide on a cup of coffee or an energy drink or something, because we feel that we've gone into the low of a sugar low, and we need something to pick us back up again. And unfortunately, then we're in this battle of fighting low and high blood sugar, and we're swinging rather than being in balance. And, that is some of the thoughts around this. And when you actually look at that, if you're, 100% identified with just the conscious mind, you don't realize that you've got huge resources in your subconscious and your superconscious. And, obviously tonight we're talking about the subconscious. And you may have heard me talk before about, the way that I look at the subconscious is like a massive warehouse. And in that warehouse we have different sections that are really important to understand and realize. And approximately, and I say approximately because if I came up with an absolute, someone would challenge me on it, but approximately 20% of that subconscious mind is dedicated to skills and things that we have learned and things that we no longer need to keep in our conscious minds, but it's really handy to have somewhere to go down and bring out that resource when we need it. And I've talked before about, when we learn to drive, we put the learning into the subconscious mind, because when we get in a car now, you don't think about what you're doing, you just automatically do it. We're on autopilot, yeah? And that's the sign of having put it into your subconscious mind. And also an awful lot of job-related skills will be kept in the subconscious, because again, it's something that you don't need to think about. You don't consciously bring it out and go, oh, how do I have to send a memo? Because actually in your own workplace how these things work. So that is a skill that you've put into your subconscious mind, as well as some of the other stuff. I know, as a mom, I don't have to think about how I change a nappy. I know, I knew how to do one. I knew how to do it because I'm a registered sick children's nurse and obviously been around children most of my life. But I didn't have to think about it. It was something that I went on automatic pilot. The one thing that will shock you out of automatic pilot sometimes when you're a mum is the content of the nappy. If it's a real doozy, that will shock your sense of smell, and you'll come out and go, wow, how could that come out of him or her? You just look at it and smile. But it's really important to realize that the storehouse of the subconscious can also, the other 20%, I tend to look at as clutter. And that is clutter that we have suppressed into the subconscious, but is not helpful. It may be the time you stubbed your toe when you were little and you felt that you had to suppress the pain. It may be, maybe not doing very well at a test when you were in grade school and thinking, ooh, maybe I should have done better. And what are my parents going to say? And what's my teacher going to say? And you suppress that because actually you don't want to deal with it. Or it's too painful, or it makes you too scared. And it's usually all of these suppressions have an emotional charge. And it, as I said, it could be shame, it could be that it was just way too painful, or it could have been a loss of a loved one, or your experience, your first love was not necessarily the best experience of love that you've ever had, and you suppress that unhappiness, or maybe feelings of poor self-worth, or whatever it is. And some of the stuff, as I say, we tend to look at it as a negative emotion. There is no negative, there is no positive, it just is. However, we tend to label it, or our conscious mind tends to label it as what I would say is a gross emotion or a more negative emotion. But we store just as much gold down there as anything else. We store some of the magic moments, some of the real sweet times that we've had. But we've also been told as children, don't be so noisy, children are seen and not heard, you stop daydreaming, you need to pay attention to this. So we've suppressed some of the really good, neat stuff, as well as the not so positive emotions. So, as I said, this warehouse of amazing stuff we tend not to know is there. And, when something comes up in our normal lives, we tend to look at it and go, where did that come from? What on earth is going on here? And, so we need to have a map of how all of this works. So we'll be talking about that when we get back from the break. See you on the other side.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
We are talking about your life. Ever wonder, is this as good as it gets? No, it could be so much better. At Acorn to Oak, we know you are seeking more happiness, joy, unconditional love, financial freedom, passion, and purpose. Find your unique mojo and live an extraordinary life. Want to know more? Contact us at our website, acorntooak.org.uk.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
So we're back from the break. So it's good to be here. I'm just going to hand over to Matthew to allow him to put any of his own spin on what we were talking about before the break, before we move on. So is there anything you would like to add, Matthew?
Yeah, thanks, Penny. the subconscious mind, it's really easy. We're told when we're younger. I remember it coming up in a lot of science lessons, is that we are only capable of using this 10%, and it the larger part of us. I mean, one of the tools I use is subconscious connected breath work, to access different parts of our mind, and also with the superconscious as well. I know we're concentrating on the subconscious, but the superconscious mind can be accessed. It's just learning how to get the conscious mind out of the way. And there are various different tools, and one of the greatest ones is meditation. So there was a real interesting article done on Steve Jobs, and he was going around in the 70s, and this is when we had no concept of mobile phones. And he said to people that, in years to come, we're going to have these phones that are actually intelligent, that they're smart, and we're going to be able to access all these different kind of apps and all this information. And people would look at him and think he was completely mad, because they were in their conscious mind and couldn't even begin to comprehend some of the things that he was saying to them. And it happens, I think, a lot with especially like scientists. I mean, if you're Einstein or someone like that, until the point that your theory is proven, most people would think you're completely insane, because they just can't comprehend what the idea you have, or what you're trying to explain. I mean, if you imagine Edison trying to explain what he was working on, I'm working on a light bulb. Most people couldn't comprehend them, but I fully believe that they were just able to access that subconscious stroke superconscious, whereby the limit of the conscious mind goes completely out the window, because you're dealing with such a larger part of the brain. It's so much more capable of being able to comprehend things, or, for want of a better word, dream things up. So Steve Jobs was walking around in the 70s telling people about smartphones and his wonderful ideas for Apple and that sort of thing. And most people would think he was absolutely mad and wouldn't consider investing in Apple. However, if they believed him and put 1% of their money in, they would probably be a billionaire now. But the point I'm trying to get across is we can access these different parts of the mind, but what you need to do is find a tool to keep the conscious mind busy. So Steve Jobs would put his success down to meditation, and that's quietening the conscious mind, getting deeper into self so that you can effectively bypass the conscious mind into what we almost class as a dream state. It's that never-ending imagination. It's the larger part of self, which has so much more capabilities. I mean, within the subconscious mind, when you clear a lot of the clutter that Penny was talking about, we do need a certain amount to hold the amount of skills that we possess. But the other 20% of the subconscious mind, the more clearing you can do around your emotional baggage and any sort of unhelpful thought forms and that sort of thing, the more capacity you're freeing up to be able to think outside the box, to come up with ideas and things like that will just blow people away. So that's why a lot of the work we do is very much it's in the subconscious, and it's dealing with that clutter. And once you deal with that clutter, you're effectively creating 20% more than you had before. So rather than it being working on all the emotions that you've never felt and all that sort of thing, it actually releases it to be hyper creative, which is ultimately what we want. we would all love to be more creative and more joyful, more passion. We talk about various different emotions, and I think I'm sure I said it to Penny before. When I started doing my journey, working with the subconscious mind, it was, I'm so angry. I just want to get rid of this anger. And Penny was like, whoa, 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 let me stop you for a minute. You don't want to get rid of your anger. What you want to do is find a tool to raise its vibration, clear it, and then pull it back in as passion. Because ultimately that's what anger is. It's passion, but it's the shadow side. So if you flip your anger, you have more passion, and made a huge difference in my life when I got that actually the reason we don't have so much passion and drive in later life is because there's only so much we have, and most of it is being taken up with anger. And it can be from childhood stuff, it can be even the job you're working in. If you're constantly being told that you need to hit targets, and if you're not hitting targets, you don't feel good enough, so then you get angry at self. A lot of people with depression, they feel as though they're no good and they're not creative and that sort of thing. They're actually feeling anger, because depression is anger turned within. A lot of people think it's sadness, but it's not. It's anger turned within. It's that anger that their life hasn't turned out quite the way they wanted to, that they're not succeeding in the way that they wanted to, and they're angry because they don't understand why. And when you can flip that into passion, that's when even just that can absolutely transform your life. You feel more energized, you feel confident, you feel like you can actually create and achieve things. So
yeah, it's sorry, it's really important. I think it is also realizing that, our limiting beliefs, and we've stored those in the subconscious, because that's what, when we come across it, and immediately we have a voice in our head that says, no, you can't do that because of X, Y, Z. And it's looking at it and just going, hey, hang on a minute, that's a limiting belief. Whose belief is it? And, it may have been something that was repeated to us as a child. So we've been hypnotized with this voice of, no, you can't do that. It's too scary. It costs so much. Money doesn't grow on trees, etc. And it's looking at it and going, okay, so what do I need to do to clear that limiting belief from the subconscious? Or it could be a core conflict. And what I call core conflicts are very much, it's something that you've been brought up doing, and you've always done it this way, and suddenly something comes in which is slightly conflicting, and it may well be making a huge life decision, like getting married to someone who's in a different faith or a different religion than you. And therefore, there's a core conflict that raises its head and will sabotage all sorts of different things, because there's no other way of the saboteur, which we were talking about last week, coming in and helping you gain clarity. And most of the time, we are seeking clarity around our own beliefs, our experiences, trying to make sense. That's what the conscious mind is all about, is trying to make some type of sense out of the world and the experiences that you're having. And when the two don't marry up, that's where a core conflict comes up. And, that can be hugely debilitating and will send people spinning off into all sorts of different pathologies, and not just physical pathologies, but mental pathologies, and thinking my mind is not as sharp as it should be. Or is it my age that's causing my mind not to be as sharp as possible? Or do I just need to gain more clarity about something? So, when you're looking at exploring the subconscious, when people say to me, well, Penny, how do you do that? And I say, you need to find a guide or mentor who is used to dealing in the subconscious, who's been down many, many times themselves. It's very much like saying, if you got lost in a forest and you wanted to find your way back to the ocean, the best guide you could get is someone who has a condo there, who lives on the ocean, who lives by the ocean, and get them to come in and give you some really good mentorship. One of the things I find in the work that I do, an awful lot of people say, well, I just want to, just tell me how to do it and I'll do it. And I'll go, that's interesting. Or, I'll just read a self-help book and I'll get the technique. Or I'll do this process once and I'll go home and I'll practice it at home. And I must admit, I just, what we say in the UK is I do the nodding dog syndrome. I don't know if you have the same in America, where you get people driving their cars and they've got a nodding dog in the back. And I just go, that's real interesting. Something that took me, I would say, probably 15 years to perfect. You want to be able to do that in 15 minutes. I actually have to tell you the truth here, and I do posts about the truth is. And the truth is, you're never going to do it unless you get some guidance. Because you will go off track. You will get lost in the forest before you get to the ocean. And we'll talk about this after the break.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
We are talking about your life. Ever wonder, is this as good as it gets? No, it could be so much better. At Acorn to Oak, we know you are seeking more happiness, joy, unconditional love, financial freedom, passion, and purpose. Find your unique mojo and live an extraordinary life. Want to know more? Contact us at our website, acorntooak.org.uk.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
So, hi, we're back. So, we've been talking about the subconscious mind, and basically, in the write-up that we did was, if your intention was to clear out the basement, you wouldn't start in the loft. You wouldn't start clearing clutter in the loft. So, we're talking about, or you could bring an analogy together and actually talk about, well, we're talking about the basement because we're talking about the subconscious mind. So if you wanted to, again, the best idea is if you were working in your basement, and clearing out the clutter, it's best to go down the stairs and go to the basement rather than going up to the loft, which is very much talking about the conscious mind or the superconscious mind. So, you want to be there actually in the subconscious to actually take out some of these boxes or crates of different materials that you've suppressed, and actually have a look at it and going, is it important for me to keep this now? Or can I just actually transmute the energy and bring it back in as a resource to myself, which will create more joy, more happiness, more freedom, more connection with the superconscious. And when we're talking about these three elements, when we're actually talking about, chakras, and, we're talking about the energetic stuff, you look at your base chakra, it's, your base, your sacral, and your solar plexus. These are the three physical chakras, or dealing with physical energy. Then you have the heart, which is very much the balance. And then you have the three spiritual centers, your throat chakra, your third eye, and your crown. And, you have what we would call in energetics a central vertical column, which connects all of those centers together. And at an even deeper level, you have a connection that connects you to Mother Earth and goes right the way up your body through the central vertical column, right the way through out of your crown chakra, and connects you to the source. And the source could be whatever makes sense to you. It could be God, it could be, the universe, it could be, whatever. It's whatever comes into your frame of reference. So you are connected to the source of everything, and you are connected to Mother Earth, and that's what grounds you. And that line we call the hara, or we call it the hara line. And if it's in alignment, in other words, if it's straight and connected to the source and connected to the earth, then you have a much better chance of working with your states of consciousness. If it's not in alignment, you will find it really quite difficult. So the first thing that you would be taught in beginning to use your subconscious mind is to get the practitioner or the coach to help you connect, to help you be in alignment, so that you can go down into your subconscious mind with ease. Now, I don't know if you were listening to us last week, but we used a specific countdown of numbers and colours, which is very much part of the Silver Mind technique, who basically helps you to lower the speed with which your mind and your brain is moving. It's taking you from normal consciousness down into a state called alpha. And what that does when you go down into alpha is slow the mind down. And what it actually does is, the practitioners of Breath4Life Breath Work are able to help you kick the conscious mind into touch. It gives it another job, and that job is just looking at the speed and the depth and the quality of your breath as you start to breathe. And as that happens, what actually happens during a Breath4Life breathwork session is your subconscious mind then takes over. Now, there's no big brass band that comes out and goes, do, 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 do. You're in your subconscious. That doesn't happen. It's just your mind becomes so much slower. You go into the hyper-creative subconscious state, which then allows you to start clearing out clutter on site. In other words, in the basement. You don't have to suddenly think that I've got to have really long arms to stretch from the kitchen to the basement to clear out the basement. You're actually there on site. And that is why subconscious connected breathwork, or Breath4Life, is so powerful. It was specifically designed to engage with the subconscious mind. Yeah. That you can clear the clutter without having to try and do it consciously, because if you do it consciously, you would never get any results, because the conscious mind thinks it knows best. Whenever I see people who have, they're repeating the same old behavior and not getting different results, it's because they're trying to think it rather than feel it and do it. Thinking paralyzes you into actually being frozen or resisting the fact that actually you just need to get down and dirty and get in there and clear the clutter, because it's old stuff that you don't want to keep, which is not valuable to you anymore, and it's just stopping you. It's like, having a bag of shit that you're carrying around behind you. If you run fast enough, you can't smell it, but it's going to catch up with you. And, it is the work that we've all we all need to do. And it is, as I said, you can use other types of breath work and you may well get some results from it. But actually, when you're doing conscious connected breath work, you're in the kitchen and you're trying to clean out the basement. It's not such a great use of your time. So handing it over to Matthew again, because I can feel him going, oh, I want to add something.
Yeah. For me, what made breathwork or subconscious connected breathwork so powerful in my life is I'd done a lot of talk therapies beforehand, had a lot of anger issues and a lot of childhood issues, and talking about it and going over it and trying to pick it apart, it gives you a sense that you're moving forwards from it and that you've dealt with it. But actually, unless you deal with the emotion that's connected to that situation, you can talk about it all you like, but what's going to keep coming back is that core emotion or the core belief around that situation. So it's great to gain clarity within the conscious mind around where your issues are and what they are. But unless you deal with the emotion that's connected to it, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. There's only so long it's going to last. And that for me was when I found breathwork, that it was like the key for me. It was kind of like, that's why I had never been able to get through some of the things that I've been through. Just to share just how powerful breathwork is. When Penny was talking about core beliefs, if you're told something enough times, you will believe it, even if you don't think you believe it. So when I was younger, I was told a lot that I would never succeed, and that to be quite frank, that I was an idiot. And I remember sharing with Penny about a week after my first breath work, something's missing. And Penny said to me, well, what is it? And when we went through it, I was thinking at the time about changing jobs, going to work for another company. And my usual thought form would be, I would like to earn more money, so I'm going to go and work for another company. And one of the first things that used to come in was, you can't do that, you're an idiot. And that was not my thought at all. That was my mother's thought. Now, one breath work took that away. And that's when I realised the power of it, and how deep ingrained these comments and these opinions can be. Because we take something that somebody said about us, and it can roll around and around and around. And before we know it, we're telling ourselves that. So when I spoke to Penny and said something's missing, and we picked apart what it was my mother's voice. And it was just the most amazing experience, and just showed me how if you can talk about it all you like I had in therapies before that, but dealing with the emotion connected to that took it away. That was it. It was done. And the freedom it gave me within my life around my decisions, it was just incredible. And I'm sure we can all think in our own lives how where teachers have sort of suggested that we're not the most intelligent people and that sort of thing. And actually, generally, when people insult you, they'll point one finger at you, and there's three pointed back at them. So they're generally talking about how they feel about themselves, only they're putting it on you. And we don't realise how damaging it is. So whatever walk of life or whatever situation you look at, whether you're looking at school or whether you're looking at like work in the workplace, there are people who naturally work within their conscious minds better. So you could say we would say they're more intelligent, and it's great for that 1% that are getting the good grades and are really succeeding in school and that sort of thing. But what about the rest of the people, the rest of the kids? The rest of the kids are sitting there thinking, "Oh, I should be doing better. I should be doing this," and it's the shoulds that are so negative, and we're being told that we're being told that we're not intelligent and we could be doing better. And actually, some of the most successful people in the world don't have a grade between them. So it's proven in life that intelligence isn't necessarily a road to success. I can think of a lot of my friends when we were going through uni and college and that sort of thing, had a higher level of intelligence than myself, or were able to sort of connect with the work better than I was. I mean, I wasn't really interested in the work necessarily at school, so I'd never failed an exam, but I didn't get the straight A's that I possibly could have if I engaged with it more. But people are told, people at uni, they were focused on the intelligence and, well, if I get this good job and if I study hard, then I'm going to get to do what I want to do in life and succeed. And I would say that probably 20% of my friends that went to uni studying a specific subject are not doing that now. And it's really interesting when we're told to focus so much on one thing, rather than it's the mind work, rather than the for want of a better expression, what makes your soul sing. A lot of people that study in a certain subject because they've been told that's what they're good at and that's what they should pursue, actually don't end up in that job anyway. So it can almost, we're telling people sort of, we're giving them false evidence, really. And it's, yeah.
yeah.
1% that are doing well are actually suppressing feelings of emotion around not feeling good enough, not
Yeah,
performing well enough.
I just wanted to get a point across before, the show is coming up to near to time. So, one of the things that people in the world today think, it's all about mindset. And I would say to you, yes, that's true. It is about mindset. However, the mind that they're talking about is just the 10%. They're talking about mindset for the 10% of the conscious mind. They're missing the point that there's 90% of amazing resource that they're not talking about. And yes, don't get me wrong, I think mindset is important because that's how we deal with the conscious mind. But it's training the mind and training the ego so it will get into service to its master, which is the soul and the subconscious, so that you can really and truly live a holistic life. So you can engage with all parts of self. You can live in your authentic self, which is in your superconscious mind. And once you align yourself with that, then everything else comes with ease. And I'm talking about the whole of your life here. So